that Donald Trump forced her hand. This was an unforced error because he was so desperate to lie about accepting her endorsement by posting some AI Swifties for Trump photo. He couldn't help himself but lie. And so that forced her hand in terms of then going out there and saying, look, I don't know if I would have said anything, but because there was manipulated video, manipulated photos out there, I thought the right course of action was to correct the record and let my actual position be known. And so because this guy is incapable of telling the truth, because he has to wield lies on a daily basis, because every time he opens his mouth, he has to spew disinformation and misinformation, he screwed himself here.
Brian Tyler Cohen was a guest on Piers Morgan show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, where he was involved with a panel of Michael Knowles, Cenk Uygur, and Tomi, Lahren. I previously posted on my channel a video focusing on the Cenk Uygur sections of this debate on Piers Morgan show. And this time I wanted to show you the clips of Brian Tyler Cohen. His approach, to say the least, is a lot different from Cenk Uygur's. He's a lot more measured and calm, but I think he's every bit as effective as what Cenk Uygur is. So I wanted you to see this. It's very interesting, very entertaining. We're going to see the clips of Brian Tyler Cohen and some of Tomi Lahren and Michael Knowles from this appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Let's check this out.
Yeah, because I don't think he's worked out quite how to do that with Kamala Harris. I mean, bring in Brian. I mean, Brian, look, I think it was a clear win for her. I think also the fact that Taylor Swift, the biggest pop star on the planet, arguably ever, has come out with such a ringing, emphatic endorsement when many people thought she may just avoid doing that altogether. Everyone kind of knew her leanings, but they thought maybe, you know, she's with this big burly NFL guy, very popular in middle America, and would she actually show her colors in such an emphatic way? Well, she did, and she chose Kamala's big win night to do it. So a double win, I think, for Kamala Harris, especially with young women who would have been watching that debate, heard all the abortion stuff, saw Taylor Swift's comments and so on. But, and it's an important but really, this race is absolutely wafer thin. I had Nate Silver from 538 on last week saying it literally is as close as it could possibly be. Do you really think that this will move the needle in the race, or has it, what it's really done, has it given the Democrats more impetus, particularly after the debate debacle with Joe Biden?
Do I really think that Taylor Swift's endorsement, where her biggest audience is Gen Z, which is the smallest vote, which is the biggest voting bloc, but the voting bloc in which the fewest people vote, and she just posted to millions of people a voter registration link in her Instagram? Do I think that will have an impact in this election where the margins are probably going to be decided by tens of thousands or just thousands of votes? Absolutely. And I think that we should take advantage of every opportunity that we get. It's important to note, too, that Donald Trump forced her hand. This was an unforced error because he was so desperate to lie about accepting her endorsement by posting some AI Swifties for Trump photo. He couldn't help himself but lie. And so that forced her hand in terms of then going out there and saying, look, I don't know if I would have said anything, but because there was manipulated video, manipulated photos out there, I thought the right course of action was to correct the record and let my actual position be known. And so because this guy is incapable of telling the truth, because he has to wield lies on a daily basis, because every time he opens his mouth, he has to spew disinformation and misinformation, he screwed himself here. And so he's the one that's going to be hurt from all of this. But moving back to just something that I think Michael said and Cenk said, Cenk started off very rightly talking about how Republicans and Donald Trump seem unhinged by perpetuating these ideas that dogs and cats are being eaten and that women are having post-birth abortions. And the first thing that Michael does when he comes on here is perpetuate these exact claims. Look, you guys can do this
and
until you're blue in the face.
With evidence.
And substantiates them with no evidence, Michael Knowles.
I don't know how to convey the extent to which when Republicans say this kind of stuff, it does not resonate with normal people. And you seem crazy. And Donald Trump went out there on stage, got laughed at by the entire nation. And then, Michael, you come on here and you do the exact same thing. So please, triple down on this, quadruple down on this, make this election a referendum on this bogus notion that women are executing their babies after they're born. I beg of you, we'll see how that works out.
Okay.
And this is a really excellent point by Brian Tyler Cohen. And you can watch this entire thing is over an hour long. It's an hour and 16 minutes episode. So if you want to watch the whole thing on Piers Morgan's Uncensored channel, you can see it there. But Michael Knowles, in another section of this debate, said, well, that he sort of admitted that maybe the stories about immigrants eating cats and dogs and geese and ducks and all these other things that the right wingers have thrown out there aren't really entirely true, but that the Haitian immigrants are cannibals. So it's just, all of these right wing pundits are all these insane conspiracy theorists. And like Brian Tyler Cohen says, they just seem bizarre to normal people who aren't part of the MAGA cult.
Well, Brian, just to respond briefly, Brian, all I did was refer to the law that Kamala Harris's running mate passed as the governor of Minnesota, the position that he currently holds. So, if you think that sounds crazy or wild, or I don't know what to tell you, then I suppose we're living in different countries. I think Cenk made a much better point than Brian just made. And Cenk's point was that Americans want change. They don't like the status quo. And I think that's absolutely true. And I do think this was the missed opportunity of the debate. The status quo is Kamala Harris.
Right.
She's the vice president. She's been imbued with presidential authority on immigration and other issues. So the change agent is Donald Trump here. That's what the debate's got to be about. That's what the election focus has to be about.
But actually,
the change agent, who was the guy who was president, for 4 years, the Republicans always want to, and the MAGA right wingers always want to act like Donald Trump is still this outsider when he was president. It's just nuts.
I found it wore a little bit thin, but de gustibus non disputandum est, so, people's mileage may vary with that. There was a real irony with the rules around this debate and Kamala's facial and even vocal interjections, which is, during that first debate back in June, Joe Biden wanted the mics to be cut when the opponent wasn't speaking. And Trump agreed to that eventually, and that rule ended up really helping Trump. Then in this debate, Kamala wanted the mics to be on so she could have her I'm speaking moment. And Trump insisted that the mics remain off. And ironically, it seems to have helped Kamala here, because I think had her mic been on and she had interjected with all of these rude remarks and her over-the-top facial expressions, I think it would have made Trump look even calmer and more presidential by comparison. So she did.
When does Donald Trump ever look calm and presidential to anybody other than people like Michael Knowles?
Relatively well. And the other really impressive thing that she did in debate prep is she got rid of that crazy cackle.
Yeah.
That crazy cackle she's had on the campaign trail for decades at this point. That disappeared overnight. And whoever prepped her on that deserves a prize in political science.
Well, she also, Brian, she didn't do too much of the word salad stuff. I mean, she did right off the top when she clearly looked nervous. But once she settled in, we didn't get the normal stream of word salad stuff, which I thought, again, was a plus for her. But the big question for Kamala Harris now is, she's ended up winning the debate. Fantastic night for her. Good for the Democrats. What does she do now to try and win the election? 50-odd days to go.
I think she continues doing what she did on that debate stage. That debate stage was a microcosm of this actual debate, which was to draw the contrast between somebody who beats his chest about law and order while simultaneously presenting himself as a 34-time convicted felon, continuing to hammer away at the fact that Donald Trump is responsible for overturning Roe in this country, which is an issue that has killed Republicans, that has cost Republicans elections in Virginia and Ohio and Kansas and Kentucky and Alabama, while Kamala Harris has presented herself as a champion of abortion rights. And really to put on full display her vision for the future. I think what's so interesting is that Tomi brought up this idea that the onus was on Kamala Harris to present some vision for the future. And if we think about this election, as far as Trump is concerned, is entirely predicated on seeking vengeance for what happened on January 6th. He wants to release the January 6th insurrectionists who've been prosecuted, who've been indicted and charged. he is solely focused on getting retribution for those people, for what happened on January 6th. He was asked in this debate whether he would sign a nationwide abortion ban multiple times, refused to answer it. You want to talk about a vision for the future? He won't talk about what he's offering for the future. He's solely focused on relitigating events of the past.
And I love in the clips here how while Brian Tyler Cohen is talking, Michael Knowles is, smirking and making these faces, and Tomi Lahren keeps taking these deep breaths as if Brian Tyler Cohen has just insulted her mother or something.
Donald Trump on his campaign website, the first link is the platform page. It's a 20-point, fairly specific plan on what he will do on inflation, on immigration, on, he's said repeatedly he doesn't want a national abortion ban, on foreign affairs. Kamala Harris, until 2 days ago, did not have a policy page on her website. It was only when some of us in the conservative media pointed out that she was lacking in this vision that they threw one up, and it was shown by the source code that much of it was stolen from Biden. The rest of it was stolen from Trump. So I agree she had a rather good night, obviously with a lot of help from the ABC moderators, but I think it is preposterous to say that she presented a vision for the future. There was very little policy substance discussed at all. And if there is going to be a second debate, this I think would be the silver lining in the storm cloud for Republicans, is President Trump needs to make sure that the focus is entirely on policy. They open up asking Kamala about the economy. She starts talking about when she was a little girl in the middle class or whatever. They bring up immigration. She starts talking about crowd sizes. She has got nothing on policy because the Kamala Harris-Joe Biden record on policy has been 3.5 years of unmitigated failure. If Trump can focus on that in the next debate, he wins.
Okay, Tomi, you've got...
So this is one of the things that all of these MAGA right-wingers like Michael Knowles have been talking about ever since Joe Biden dropped out of the race and Kamala Harris took over. Oh, Trump just needs to focus on policy. Just needs to focus on policy. The Republicans don't have any policies that appeal to average Americans, normal Americans who are outside of MAGA. And Donald Trump doesn't have the ability to focus on policy. Like Brian Tyler Cohen is talking about here, he just wants to focus on taking vengeance against all of these various people that he feels have wronged him. He is just going to continue to call people names and try to do his weird stand-up act where he talks about Hannibal Lecter and things like this. Donald Trump is incapable of talking about policy. And all throughout this debate, and both debates, the debate with Joe Biden as well, every question he would come back to immigration, no matter what topic they were talking about. So Donald Trump has no policy to discuss. And all of these right-wingers constantly talk about this. Oh, if Donald Trump will just talk about policy, he's going to win this race easily. And he's incapable of doing it.
And there he is in his cart, in the trap. And the headline is "In Trouble." But the thing about Trump is he's a much better golfer than people think he is. He can get out of bunkers, traps in golf very well. And he's also proved himself to be very good at getting out of political traps, even though he fell into a few last night.
Nobody cares, Piers Morgan, that Donald Trump is what about his golf game?
Are you concerned that the bear's been poked and may come back hard and maybe Kamala Harris won't be able to handle that?
No, I completely disagree. I think that when Donald Trump is backed into a corner, he only hurts himself. I mean, look at what he said when he wasn't getting any attention because Kamala surged onto the screen. Her rallies were explosive. She was drawing in more people than he was. And so what did he do? He went on national TV and did, said that she wasn't black. And then he had a press conference the next day at Mar-a-Lago where he said that his rallies drew more people than Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. Every time he's backed into a corner, he tries to kind of grab back the attention with some insane thing that might be fun for his base, but it's not going to help him. People watching Donald Trump say insane things is only going to help him with the people who are already supporting him. But for that sliver of people in the middle, the sliver of people who are going to decide this race, these conservative Democrats, these independents, these pro-democracy Republicans, these low propensity voters, young people, people of color, they're not going to watch Donald Trump brag that his crowd size was bigger than Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech and think that's my guy. I've been waffling all this time, but now I know that that's my guy. I also want to harken back to something that Michael said before, which is that this idea that Kamala Harris, when she's running right now, she's running on all this baggage of the Biden-Harris administration. We have more than 16 million jobs added. We have a record high stock market. We have the lowest unemployment in 50 years. We have the strongest economy in the entire world. We've had more legislation passed under Joe Biden in the first 2 years of his administration than we've had in any administration in modern American history. This idea that this administration hasn't done a good job, that our economy is strong, that the United States is performing well, not only relative to the rest of the world, but relative to where we've stood in the past, is a complete denial of reality.
Okay.
So again, while Brian Tyler Cohen is just throwing out facts, Michael Knowles is sitting here smirking. But to me, I think these are all great points from Brian Tyler Cohen. Again, Donald Trump is incapable of really talking about any policy that appeals to anybody just who is an average person in the United States. Everything is insane conspiracy theories about immigrants, basically, and unhinged things that he says about abortion that make absolutely no sense. And like Brian Tyler Cohen is saying here to Piers Morgan, Donald Trump has so many self-inflicted wounds, because even when there is an opportunity for maybe him to do or say the right thing, he can't help himself but to question Kamala Harris's race or say other terrible things that, again, don't appeal to normal people and just make Donald Trump look like a maniac. But what do you think? Again, this is just some short clips from this longer debate on Piers Morgan's Uncensored show. I recommend that you watch the whole thing. It's really good. And I recommend that you watch the entire thing on Piers Morgan show. It's really great. But what do you think? How do you think that Brian Tyler Cohen did here? As I said, comparing him to Cenk Uygur in this particular debate, Cenk Uygur got very, very heated, and Brian Tyler Cohen is a very calm guy. He gets his points out in a very calm, but I feel effective way. But let me know in the comments what you think about how Brian Tyler Cohen did here against Michael Knowles and against Piers Morgan on Piers Morgan Show. I love to read your comments about Brian Tyler Cohen, Piers Morgan, anything else that you like to talk about, anything else that you like to comment about. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm now up closing in on 14,000 subscribers. The channel, Chris on Culture, is growing really quickly. With your likes and subscribes, I can continue to grow. So I thank you so much for your help. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. This is Chris on Culture. I will see you in the next video.